Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, authorities say images of Islamic State flags have been found on the computer of a Korean teenager who may have joined the extremist group in Syria. The government says it's going to create a business environment to induce more than $23 billion in investment by local firms to build up Korea's tourism industry. Plus, the U.S. Secret Service says shots were fired outside Vice President Joe Biden's home in Delaware. Biden and his wife were not home at the time. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, January 19th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we begin with growing concerns. A young Korean man reported missing in Turkey more than a week ago might have joined Islamic State in Syria. Authorities in Korea say they have found pictures of Islamic State-related material on the man's computer. Nothing has been confirmed yet, though, as Korea and Turkey step up efforts to try and work out where he went. Son Jung-in reports.
Seoul's foreign ministry says the 18-year-old man surnamed Kim was last seen on January 10th after leaving a hotel in Kilis, a town that sits on the Turkey-Syria border. His disappearance came to light 2 days later when Kim's travel companion in his 30s reported him missing to the Korean embassy in Ankara. A Turkish daily newspaper reported on Saturday that Kim had crossed the border into Syria to join the Islamic State militant group after exchanging emails with one of its members. Authorities in Seoul initially cast doubt on the allegations, saying they had found no evidence he was in contact with IS. However, new evidence has come to light. Police in Korea say they found 3 photos on the teenager's computer showing IS members holding rifles and the group's distinctive black flag. And an employee of the hotel where Kim was staying in Kilis reportedly said Kim was wearing an Islamic-style headscarf and was carrying a backpack as he left the hotel. The hotel employee said he thought Kim might have planning on going to Syria. Authorities in Korea and Turkey are working in close coordination to try and locate the teenager. If it's confirmed, it will make the first known case of a Korean national joining Islamic State. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
North Korea has warned that there will be no inter-Korean talks if South Korea goes ahead with its scheduled annual military drills with the U.S. Pyongyang's state-run paper, the Nodong Shinmun, reported on Sunday that the fate of possible talks with the South or the U.S. rests on whether the Key Resolve and Foal Eagle exercises happen or not. The paper says that if the drills are cancelled, inter-Korean talks can proceed smoothly and there will be peace and security in Northeast Asia. Every year, North Korea calls on Washington and Seoul to scrap the drills, calling them a rehearsal for an invasion. The US and South Korea say the exercises are purely defensive in nature. And North Korea says South Korea needs to lift sanctions as a precondition to holding reunions for families separated by the Korean War. According to its propaganda website, the North says Seoul is raising tensions by going ahead with these planned military drills with the United States and by not stopping activists flying anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border. The website says the ball is in South Korea's court. And when it provides the environment and conditions, the issue of family reunions will be solved and inter-Korean relations will improve. Now, the recently released film, The Interview, is the movie North Korea really doesn't want you to see. Pyongyang seems to be so desperate that North Korean diplomats in Myanmar have been prodding the local authorities there to crack down on vendors selling bootleg DVDs of the movie. Connie Lee has more.
The comedy, The Interview, is attracting attention once again, this time for its popularity in Myanmar. The movie, about a fictional plot to kill a North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, has caused quite the stir, with Pyongyang calling the movie an act of war and the communist state accused of hacking Sony Pictures in retaliation. But now it looks like Pyongyang is trying to stop sales of pirated copies of the movie on the streets of Myanmar. The New York Times has reported that in recent days, the police, sometimes accompanied by North Korean officials, have been visiting DVD shops in Yangon, Myanmar's biggest city, to rid the shops of bootleg copies of the film. According to street vendors and shop owners, as copies of the movie began selling out, with some saying that more than 100 DVDs were sold in a day, the police started a citywide crackdown on sales of the movie and threatened anyone selling it. Now, copies of the movie, which were selling for about $1 for 3, have disappeared from the shelves of large DVD shops and roadside vendors. The report also quotes one DVD seller who says a police officer told her the North Korean embassy in Myanmar had provided a list of shops selling the film. However, Myanmar's information minister and a presidential spokesperson says the crackdown is not targeting a specific movie, but only targeting pirated DVDs. The interview was released online and in a limited number of theaters in the U.S. at the end of last year. But aside from the bootleg copies, it has not yet officially been released on DVD. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Now, the South Korean government has unveiled a very ambitious plan to attract tens of billions of dollars in investors' funds to take the country's tourism industry to the next level. The plan includes the construction of 2 new $930 million mega resorts containing casinos and other luxury facilities. Our Jim Young-gil has more.
The plan calls for the prompt spending of nearly $16 billion previously earmarked for the development of 4 mega projects and aims to attract more than $7 billion in new investments for the construction of hotels, resorts, and theme parks for a total of $23 billion. The plan was formulated by the Ministries of Finance, Tourism, and Land and other government agencies. One of the 4 mega projects would develop the land in the U.S. Army's Yongsan garrison in central Seoul. The other projects would develop land once used as the headquarters of Korea Electric Power Corporation, build auxiliary facilities for cogeneration plants in new towns, and expand OLED display assembly lines. To boost the country's tourism industry, the government will build 2 resorts with new investment targets of nearly $930 million each. The resorts will have hotels, conference halls, fine dining, shopping malls, leisure and sports facilities, medical facilities, and casinos, which will only be open to foreign tourists. The government says it will also aim to attract funds to expand the number of hotels nationwide to cope with the increasing number of foreign tourists every year.
We expect some $1 billion to be able to construct 5,000 hotel rooms by 2017.
The government also plans to authorize the opening of 4 new duty-free shops, 3 in Seoul and 1 on Jeju Island. In addition, the government hopes to designate 6 new high-tech centers in urban areas and will provide more than $18 billion this year in the form of loans to innovative tech companies. Jim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, starting on this Monday, all government agencies will brief President Park Geun-hye on their plans for the coming 12 months. The Presidential Office of Cheongwade says the president will receive briefings from 15 ministries and 2 government agencies through Friday. There's growing speculation President Park could also reshuffle her cabinet before the Lunar New Year holiday, which starts February 18th. This follows news last week that the president's approval ratings have slipped to their lowest level since she took office nearly 2 years ago. Korean consumers have long been very loyal to Korean-made products, but the tide is turning with a new report saying Koreans now look at quality and price over where the product is actually from. This according to the British weekly Economist, which says Koreans are now turning to non-Korea-based websites for their shopping, as they know they can save quite a lot of money. The Weekly says there was a time when Korean celebrities swapped their BMWs for Hyundais to show their patriotism, but such trends have run their course. It cites 2009 as the point when the patriotic consumerism first lost its edge here in Korea, when Apple launched its iPhone here and seized a quarter of smartphone sales in 1 year alone. The Economist also pointed to Korea's free trade agreements for this changing trend, saying that Koreans have more choice than ever. The ecosystem for startups in Korea is really starting to blossom these days. So much so that some believe Seoul is on the cusp of becoming Asia's Silicon Valley in the coming years. The government has shown its full support behind nurturing startups, actually dishing out tens of billions of dollars in grants and other kinds of subsidies. For the first in our 5-part series on startups in Korea, here's our Gwon-soa.
Only 3 startups have made it to the top 100 companies in terms of market capitalization in Korea over the past 35 years. A fact that clearly highlights conglomerates still dominate the country's economy. But there are signs the corporate landscape is changing. The number of startups in the country has been hitting records in recent years, reaching nearly 30,000 last year. That's more than triple the number during the dot-com bubble from the late 90s to the early 2000s. And the number of serious investors has grown too. $1.3 billion was poured into startups last year, marking a 27% rise from 3 years ago. The startup ecosystem has also strengthened with a rise in angel investors, accelerators, and networks. Startup Alliance, a joint effort between the government and private sector, for example, arranges special events to connect startups with potential partners and clients.
Compared to Canada, where I'm from, Korean government, a lot of Korean institutions providing a really good environment to the people who are preparing to start a business. For example, this kind of a meeting and providing really good information, and there are a lot of seminars for it.
Experts say the new startup wave is different from the previous boom, when e-commerce was still a fledgling business and internet connections were clunky. Now, net access is instant and easy, even more so thanks to the mobile revolution.
A lot of small startups, they're trying to connect some kind of services to the smartphone and more efficiently than existing offline businesses. So there will be a lot of new innovations on that front.
President Park Geun-hye wants startups to lead her administration's drive to transform Korea into a creative economy. She has vowed to cut cumbersome red tape and provide financial incentives to entrepreneurs with good ideas. In line with this, the government has earmarked $92 billion this year to support them. Getting startups off the ground is one thing, but turning them into profitable business is another story. Korea's #1 web portal Naver, one of the most successful startups that survived the dot-com bust, is also stepping in to provide practical help. It's opening a startup accelerator this year in Seoul's version of Silicon Valley, the Tehran Valley. Also to be present there this year, a government-planned high-tech startup campus and the 3rd Google campus in the world.
The success of startups is key to realizing the government's creative economy plan, which in turn is key to getting the economy back on its feet. Gwon-soa, Arirang News.
Now, Koreans have an unquenchable thirst for bottled water. There are trendy water bars stocked with dozens of varieties, from sparkling to glacial. And they're also staffed with specially trained waiters to help you make your choice. But this hasn't always been the case. Korea's bottled water market has expanded very rapidly in recent years, as our Park Ji-won reports in this week's Industry Insight.
Korea's bottled water market is estimated to hit about $5.5 million in 2014. The market has almost quadrupled over the past 15 years, and last year alone it grew by some 10%. Currently, there are around 100 domestic brands of bottled water in Korea. But the hands-down top seller is Jeju Samdasu, the #1 brand for 16 years running. Let's take a look. Jeju Samdasu has been the invincible market leader since it was launched in the late 1990s. Produced and bottled by the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province Development Corporation, Jeju Samdasu racked up some $206 million in sales revenue last year, a market share of over 35%.
The reason for the continued support from Korean consumers is the unparalleled water quality. Jeju Island has one of the highest levels of precipitation in Korea. The rainfall permeates underground, forming vast groundwater resources. Jeju Island's volcanic rocks function as a natural filter, resulting in clean and naturally mineral-enriched water.
With Jeju Samdasu firmly in the lead, the competition for the #2 spot has been fierce. As of the end of 2014, Baeksansu, a brand launched in 2012 by food and beverage conglomerate Nongsim, has taken the highly coveted second position with a 5.4% market share. While Korea's bottled water market grew about 10% last year, Baeksansu's revenue expanded over 30% from the previous year.
There are 3 conditions for good water resources: excellent water quality, a clean environment, and abundance of water. Baekdusan Mountain meets all 3 conditions, and that's why Baeksansu is bottled there.
With the growing interest in health and well-being in the nation, sales of bottled water have outpaced the sales of juice, which tends to contain sugar and artificial colors, for the first time. Now that water is one of the most popular beverages, consumers are developing a water palate and a flair for water and food pairings. And premium water bars like this, which sells over 100 bottled water brands, are gaining a foothold. At the bar, water sommeliers offer their advice about which types of water will best suit consumers' needs.
There are many types of bottled water, from glacial water to deep sea water to spring water. The taste depends on the mineral content and the water's pH. And now that drinking bottled water is now considered as a part of a health and beauty regimen, the market's growth is expected to accelerate in coming years.
Another fast-growing segment is sparkling water. While still in its infant stage, the fizzy drink has quadrupled its market share in just 5 years, and it's estimated to have reached some $32 million last year. And being that it accounted for about 70% of all imported bottled water in Korea, it's estimated to grow at an even faster rate than the still water market. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, it's time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Monday morning in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. New this morning, multiple gunshots were heard outside of the residence belonging to U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, and police are investigating whether anything was hit. The Secret Service said the shots were fired around 8:30 Saturday evening local time on a public road several hundred meters from the secured perimeter of his Delaware home. Now, soon after hearing the shots, Secret Service personnel saw a vehicle drive away at a rate of speed. Reuters reports Vice President Biden and his wife were in Delaware at the time, though out for the evening. Police arrested one person about half an hour later when he tried to pass an officer securing the area. It is still not yet known, however, whether the individual is tied to the shooting. Pope Francis is set to fly back to the Vatican today, wrapping up a 5-day trip to the Philippines, Asia's largest Catholic nation. And there was great enthusiasm for his visit. In an outdoor mass in Manila on Sunday, an unprecedented 6 to 7 million people braved a tropical storm to hear the Argentine pontiff speak. This according to the Vatican, which cited local estimates. That is a new record for a papal event since Pope John Paul II drew 5 million in Manila 20 years ago. Pope Francis carried with him a message of supporting the family, protecting the environment, and crying with the poor. A part of the service was dedicated to the victims of Typhoon Haiyan that had devastated the country back in 2013. And finally, Japan's main opposition Democratic Party has a new leader. Katsuya Okada, who led the party for 18 months from 2004 to 2005, beat 43-year-old Goshi Hosono 133 points to 120 in a runoff on Sunday. Okada now faces a huge challenge in reviving the party after a defeat in December's general election. The 61-year-old former deputy prime minister and foreign minister appears to share some of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic and defense policies. At a press conference after his victory, he gave Abe credit for the country's economic success and said he agrees that Japan needs to be better prepared for regional conflicts. However, he has been a strong critic of Abe for failing to acknowledge Japan's wartime past, including his visits to the Yasukuni War Shrine and for a widening gap between the rich and the poor.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with our 2015 Asian Cup coverage as the Korean national football team is set to play in the quarterfinals after winning all 3 group stage matches, but some major concerns with the team's injury going into the next round. Now, after losing Lee Chung-young to an ankle injury, Koo Ja-chul is now out of the tournament after injuring his elbow during Korea's 1-0 win over Australia on Saturday. But with manager Uli Stilke using 21 different starters during the group stage, there are options as the Taeguk Warriors are set to face off against Uzbekistan in the quarterfinals. Now, while the South Korean national team finished their group stage with 3 wins while scoring 3 goals, the North Korean national team finished their group stage with 0 wins and 0 goals scored. Now, quite a disappointing end for North Korea in Group B as they lose to China on Sunday 2-1, with the 1 goal coming from China's own goal. And with that, North Korea finishes winless in Group B, giving up 6 goals while scoring 0 goals throughout the tournament as they end their quest for their first title in 35 years. Now, baseball's Park Chan-ho did more than just win 124 games in the majors. He paved way for other Koreans who ever dreamt of becoming a major leaguer. And over the weekend, he was honored with the MLB Pioneer Award. Now, with the Professional Baseball Scouts Foundation event taking place on Saturday, both Hideo Nomo and Park Chan-ho were given the MLB Pioneer Award. And as Park Chan-ho received his award, his speech was quite a memorable one as he talked about the hardships of being a pioneer and thanked the Scouts for giving him an opportunity to play professional baseball in the majors. Well, thanks to Park Chan-ho, players like Kang Jong-ho can play in the majors, but Kang Jong-ho did become the first KBO position player to head over to the majors after signing a 4-year deal worth $11 million with an option for a 5th year. And while the Pirates are known to spend a lot of money, that contract will be worth it for the Pirates financially. Now, according to the Pittsburgh Pirates, after Kang Jong-ho signed a multi-year deal over the weekend, a number of Korean companies have contacted the team asking for ad space at the PNC Park. And they expect a number of companies to sign sponsorship deals with the team, giving them a financial boost they really need. And of course, you can expect more Koreans wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates cap out on the streets of Korea as well. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, you might want to leave home a bit early today. Last night's snow has turned into roads slippery and icy. Also, it's a Monday morning, so you will spend extra minutes on the road. And sidewalks are covered with lots of snow as the capital area received up to 3 centimeters overnight, so be careful. But temperatures are relatively milder this morning. Readings have already gone up to above 1 degree Celsius in the capital. And the skies will get sunnier. Patches of clouds that are hovering around the peninsula will gradually give way to sun, and that sunshine will send the temperatures to what it was like yesterday, as the daytime high in Seoul will peak at 4, while Daegu and Gwangju both rise to 7, and Busan will top out at 10 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will see high of 9 and 4, while Dokdo peaks at 5. Well, that's all I have for you at this hour, and let's send it back to Mark in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon, for the weather, and that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at 7 a.m. Korea time. Have a fabulous day. Goodbye.